you've really got to come to the conversation on June the 26th because it's absolutely one-time unique experience of seeing one of the top neurologists in the world in conversation with one of the top TV writers in the world. You know, Dr. Bruce Miller from the Aging and Memory Centre in conversation with David Milch, who is the creator of Deadwood. And having access to David Milch in this brave journey he's making of being public about his Alzheimer's diagnosis and how creativity keeps him going. And I just can't think of a better way to round out watching the play than to have a live conversation with these incredible people. Hi, I'm Lucy Davenport, and I'm here being interviewed about the play UnRavelled. If you'd like to find out some more about the play itself and our live conversation on June the 26th, please join us for this conversation, which we will discuss about the play and the live talkback. So we are having an amazing talkback on June the 26th, which brings together all the things that this play touches on. And we are so amazingly lucky. We have people from the absolute top flight of both the science and the creativity fields to talk about this. So we have Dr. Bruce Miller, who runs the Memory and Aging Center in UC San Francisco, who is really one of the premier neurologists in the world, but has this particular interest in looking at the brain and creativity and how they work together, and even almost looking at creativity as maybe a way of treating the brain or helping the brain in extremis. And then on the other side, we have this extraordinary opportunity to meet David Milch, who is the creator of Deadwood, all of these amazing shows. Now, he is suffering from Alzheimer's, and he made the incredibly brave decision to, instead of hiding it and trying to keep it from people, he decided to talk about it publicly. And he, in fact, did the whole last series of Deadwood while suffering from Alzheimer's. Now, he is now cared for by his wife, and he's in quite advanced stage Alzheimer's, and he is still prepared to come on. And the one thing that lights him up, that makes him unbelievably connected and back in the reality of now, is telling stories. And his wife records them, and he comes in, he will pitch her a new idea every day. And that's one of the things that keeps him going and keeps her going. And I think that's a beautiful expression of a mind of someone that we all have experienced the work of, a guy at the top of his game, embracing this terrifying diagnosis and being brave enough to speak about it, and what it's like to be told you have Alzheimer's when you're at the top of your career, and what do you do next, and how also his creativity is the thing that's keeping him going. So we will have an opportunity to speak with David Milch, which is extraordinary. And then we'll be able to, all of us, talk about how this play brings together, you know, Dr. Bruce Miller and David Milch, and how suddenly we have this common ground. And that to me seems like an extraordinary conversation to have, especially after having watched the play and maybe thought about these things and thought about a little bit about brains and how they work and what they mean, and how creativity is woven into that. So in UnRavelled, the story really is about Anne Adams, who is a preeminent scientist. She's been led her own cell line. She's been a real sort of light in the world of biology for years and years. And then her son had a very traumatic car accident, and I don't think they thought he was going to live. And after going through rehab, he had to come home and recover. So Anne decided to leave her job and look after him and help him recover, which he did, which is amazing. Now, while she was at home helping him recover, she started to paint. And I'm going to slip into I now because I'm so close to this character. I think that I started to paint, and it was very prosaic things. I painted strawberries, and it wasn't honestly very good. But sometime in this period, after her son was recovered and in fact went back to college, she started painting in a completely different style, and became obsessed with the piece of music Bolero by Ravel, and would literally play it over and over and over again. And she started to paint it. She started to translate that piece of music into a visual piece. And this was absolutely completely different from anything she'd done before. And at the end, you reveal this piece, and it really is astonishing. It's completely different in style from anything she'd ever done, and it was so good that she even got it shown in a gallery. And her husband, who she was very close to, at this stage is, excited by this painting, bemused by it, not really understanding where this complete change of focus came from. And as she goes on and starts to paint other things that happen to her, or abstract things she translates into paintings, she starts to get other symptoms. She starts to lose words. She seems to not be able to communicate what she's thinking. So eventually, after lots of resistance from Anne, her husband takes her to a neurologist, and they find out that she's actually suffering from a form of dementia called prefrontal aphasia. And this is a very cruel disease where slowly your ability to speak goes, and then slowly also you lose the ability to function physically, to point, to hold things, and then eventually to breathe. But what is the extraordinary thing about this was that this disease, which was really a death sentence and a horrible discovery for both her and her husband, had also unlocked this amazing creativity in her. And I think the play explores what happens when someone you love is sick, or what happens when you are sick, with something that is going to kill you, but it's also freed you to do something beautiful. And I think that a lot of people can really connect with this, because almost all of us are going to have the experience of having someone we love get Alzheimer's or a form of dementia, because our bodies are outliving our brains. We're living so much longer, that we have this whole uncharted territory between 80 and 110 now, where we're all going to get really old because medicine can keep us alive longer. But how will our brains cope with that? And the experience of caring for someone with a degenerative disease, or being someone with a degenerative disease, is really what this play is about. And it's been extraordinary. I would say a huge number, 75% of the hundreds of people who've seen this, have something like that in their lives, have taken care of someone who's sick, have experienced some kind of memory loss, have known someone they love go into a dark place where they think they can't follow. And that, to me, is why this is not only an extraordinary story of somebody rising above a terrible diagnosis, but also it touches on experience that almost all of us have experience of, which is what happens when somebody you love changes or disappears. I really would love the audience for UnRavelled to remember that all forms of dementia are not necessarily just a terrible death sentence, that we could refocus how we see people with disease as, I think there's a tendency now to be like, oh, you're broken, and it's just like a hill. You're going to go down the hill, you're going to get worse and worse and worse until you die, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you're powerless. What I would love them to understand is that there can be tremendous beauty and even, weirdly enough, positivity in that disease. And if you have 10 years left with dementia, you could achieve beautiful things. You could achieve amazing things. We've seen this over and over again in the people watching it and the people who contributed to the talkbacks, that the bizarre sort of effect of this disease, as well as taking things away, is also to give back. And we have a personal story in our family of somebody who was a very sort of terrifying figure in our family, a really difficult woman, and who'd caused a lot of hurt and pain in the family. She got dementia and she lost all of that aggression, all of that meanness, and she became this sort of small, sweet, kind, caring. And it was, from her point of view, it was probably a very freeing experience to let go of all that pain and hurt. For us around her, it was also extraordinary because we were able to see someone who was really scary and broken and damaged just let go of all that and be really present. And she was able to, like meet her grandchild for the first time and take joy in that in a way that maybe wouldn't be possible. So even on a tiny personal level, I think also the big thing about this play is not only that, which hopefully is also to say we see you for the people who are caring for loved ones with this kind of disease. I mean, the amount of dedication and patience and just fortitude that caring for someone with a degenerative disease asks of someone you love is extraordinary. And I just want to say to those people who are the carers that you are seen, that you are recognized, and the extraordinary things that you have done, they mean something. They don't just disappear into a black hole. So yeah, and I think those are the most important things for me from the inside. I really believe that people should see Unravelled because it's a little bit to do with the fact that we're all going to face something like this in our lives. We're all going to face a time when we're going to get older and we're going to change, and how do you negotiate that? I also think that we are all going to face some kind of challenge like this. As medical science makes us live longer, we're going to get older and we're all going to have these, but I think we're going to have, something's going to kill us, probably a lot slower than it used to do. And whether you're the carer or the person suffering, this is going to be our future, and therefore it's completely universal. And so interestingly enough, a play which on the surface is about neuroscience and art, or neuroscience and music, and the interface of those two things, is actually profoundly about being human. And one of the things that Ravel says, and I've not been very good at touching on that, it turns out that Ravel, who wrote Bolero, was actually suffering from the same disease at the same age, at the same time that he wrote Bolero. And they have this, Anne and Bolero have this connection over 100 years, which obviously is imaginary, but, well, maybe it's not. But it's the idea that you can have, like, who are you? Are you that which you do in the first 50 years of your life or the last 20? Like, how are you defined? We define people by, are they sick or are they well? But maybe we need to open up those categories a little bit more. So not only are we all going to face a situation where we might be a carer or a caree, I think it really asks some profound questions about how the mind works. And that's why Dr. Miller, the real Dr. Miller, is so fascinated by this. Because he's like, so can you turn off one part of the brain and wake up another part of it? Because that's what this disease seems to do, at least for a short time. And the implications of that are, go to the real heart of who we are. Our brains are our motors. If you can switch one bit off and wake another bit up, what an extraordinary thing that would be. And so these implications are so universal. I love people who watch this and say, well, I'm not creative. I don't paint, I don't write music, I'm not an actor. And you're like, yes, but maybe you are, but you just haven't discovered it yet. And I think that's what's beautiful about some of the patients that we got to interview, is that some of them were like, they were people who had no contact with this kind of world. They thought, I'm not an artist. I'm not someone who makes things. And then because of this disease sort of setting them free, they made all kinds of beautiful things, music, paintings. This guy who made these incredible sculptures out of stones in spirals. And these the idea that who are we and how do we access those parts of ourselves, I think is like, I mean, that applies to everybody. Which is why I think it's a beautiful story, because it could just be about a woman who gets sick and how her husband copes. But it's also a play about, like, who are we? Maybe you can be an accountant for 70 years and then discover you're a painter, or the other way around. Hi, I'm Lucy Davenport, and I'm one of the actors in the play UnRavelled. If you've enjoyed my conversation today, please come join us on June the 26th for our showing of the play, followed by a live conversation with David Milch and Dr. Bruce Miller. You can find everything you need to know about this, the play, and the live conversation afterwards at unravelledplay.com. That's unravelled with 2 L's play.com.